Hello, this is FARZANA Shamim, lecturer in English, welcoming you to the English class. Today we are going to do a very interesting story written by Ruskin Bond, taken from your English book, A Panorama of Life. This is a Padho Punjab, Padhao Punjab project English. I'm sure you'll enjoy this session. You might be wondering why I have not told you the title of the story. Well, I want you to guess the title of the story. Look at the pictures and guess the title of the story. The first picture. Yeah, it's a tiger. The second picture. Look at the opening. Good, it's a tunnel. The third picture contains the title of the story. Where is the tiger? Good, the tiger is in the tunnel. There you are. The title of the story is The Tiger in the Tunnel, written by Ruskin Bond. Before we proceed further, let's get to know something about the author Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond is a famous Indian writer of British descent. He is the son of Edith Clarke and Aubrey Bond. He was born on 19 May 1934 in Kasauli, Himachal Pradesh in India. He has received many awards for his exemplary writings. He has written over 300 short stories, essays and novels and over 30 children's books. Additionally, he has penned 2 autobiographical volumes about himself. The first one is Scenes from a Writer's Life and the Lamp is Lit. Second one is Leaves from a Journal. Before we read the story, let's learn some new words so that the story becomes understandable and interesting for you. The first word is cicada, cicada. Cicada is an insect. cutting, cutting. Cutting is a raised area like a hill or mountain from where soil or rock is removed to make a way or passage. obstruction, obstruction, something that prevents passage or progress. Suppose I place a huge rock in front of your class. Can you enter your class? No. So this rock is an obstruction that prevents you from entering the class. drowsy, drowsy, tired and wanting to sleep. eriness, eeriness, the quality of being strange, mysterious and frightening, like the eeriness of a horror movie. frequent, frequent, doing something quite often, like frequent visit to someone's house, park, anywhere. fragile, fragile, easily broken or damaged, like the glass items, paper flowers that get easily damaged. fumble, to look for something. hesitation, hesitation, the act of being slow to speak or act because you feel uncertain or nervous. Suppose you have done something wrong and your principal summons you. You don't feel like going to her because you are scared. This is what is called hesitation. huddle, huddle, to gather closely together, usually because of cold, fear or sorrow. Here is an activity for you to test whether you have understood the words or not. Match the words in column A with their meanings in column B. We'll do one by one. Drowsy. Find the meaning. Fumble. Huddle. Fragile. Obstruction. Let's see the answers. Drowsy, tired and wanting to sleep. Fumble, to look for something. Huddle, to gather closely together, usually because of cold, fear or sorrow. Fragile, easily broken or damaged. Obstruction, something that prevents passage or progress. Dear students, please go through these questions. After reading a part of the story, you'll have to answer these questions. Name the 3 animals mentioned at the beginning of the story. Who was Tembu? Where does Baldeo go at midnight? Now let's read the story. There was no moon that night, and the deathly stillness of the surrounding jungle was broken only occasionally by the shrill cry of a cicada. Sometimes from far off came the hollow hammering of a woodpecker, carried along on the faint breeze, or the grunt of a wild boar could be heard as he dug up a favorite root. It was a dark, moonless night. The silence of the night was broken now and then by the loud shriek of a cicada, by the sound made by the woodpecker, or the loud grunt of a wild pig. But these sounds were rare, and the silence of the forest always returned to swallow them up. What a beautiful description given here. Whenever these small animals, that is, the sounds, were heard, the silence of the forest immediately swallowed them up, so that these sounds were rarely heard in the forest. See how beautifully Ruskin Bond has described. Baldeo the watchman was awake. He stretched himself slowly, unwinding the heavy shawl that covered him. It was close on midnight, and the chill air made him shiver. Baldeo slowly removed the heavy shawl that covered him, because he had to go to the tunnel to light the signal lamp. It was a bitterly cold night. The station, a small shack backed by heavy jungle, was a station in name only. It was a small and isolated station, for trains only stopped there, if at all, for a few seconds before entering the deep cutting that led to the tunnel. And most trains merely slowed down before taking the sharp curve before cutting. Look at the curve there. To avoid accident, they stopped. They merely slowed down before taking the sharp curve before cutting. Baldeo was responsible for signaling whether or not the tunnel was clear of obstruction. This was the duty of Baldeo. And his manual signal stood before the entrance. Manual means to work with hand. Signal here is the oil lamp. At night, it was his duty to see that the lamp was burning and that the overland mail passed through safely. So, Baldeo lights the oil lamp. Baldeo lights the oil lamp and hangs it at the entrance of the tunnel so that the train driver could get the signal that there was no obstruction inside the tunnel. "Shall I come to father?" asked Tembu sleepily, still lying in a huddle in a corner of the hut. "No, it's cold tonight. Do not get up." Baldeo asks Tembu to stay indoors because it's bitterly cold outside. Tembu, who was 12, did not always sleep with his father at the station. Why? Because He had also to help in the home where his mother and small sister were usually alone. As you know, Baldeo and Tembu were the only male members in the family. So Tembu had to live with his mother and small sister quite often. They lived in a small tribal village on the outskirts of the forest, outer boundary of the forest, about 3 miles from the station. Their village was 3 miles away from the station where Baldeo lived. Their small rice fields did not provide them with more than a bare living, and Baldeo considered himself lucky to have got the job of Kalasi at the small wayside signal stop. The produce from the rice fields was not enough to help them survive. So Baldeo was overjoyed when he got the job of night watchman, because this job could help him support his family. Still drowsy, Baldeo groped for his lamp in darkness, then fumbled about in search of matches. When he had produced a light, he left the hut, closed the door behind him, and set off along the permanent way. Tembu had fallen asleep again. At midnight, Baldeo goes out of his hut into the thick forest. The jungle is full of dangerous animals, but Baldeo has a job to do, and it is important. You see, Baldeo is very tired and sleepy. It is extremely cold outside. Yet, being dutiful, he goes into the dark forest to light the signal lamp for the train drivers to pass through the tunnel safely. He understands that it is an important duty that he has to perform. Now let's see how many of you could find the answers. Name the 3 animals mentioned at the beginning of the story: cicada, woodpecker, wild boar. Who is Tembu? Tembu is Baldeo's son. Where does Baldeo go at midnight? Baldeo goes into the thick forest at midnight to light the oil lamp at the tunnel. Okay, dear students, please go through these questions. After reading the next part of the story, you'll have to answer them. So, try to find the answers as we read the next part of the story. The questions are from the next part of the story. State whether the following statements are true or false. The famous tunnel tiger was a man-eater. Baldeo's axe was made by his father. It's time to light the lamp. Who said this to whom? Okay, now let's read the next part of the story. Baldeo wondered whether the lamp on the signal post was still alight, still burning. Gathering his shawl closer about him because it's extremely cold outside, he stumbled on. He moved unsteadily, sometimes along the rails, sometimes along the ballast. Look at the second picture. Do you see the stones on the railway track that have been used to form the bed of the track? This is ballast. He longed to get back to his warm corner in the hut because it's very cold outside. The airiness of the place was increased by the neighboring hills which overhung the main line threateningly. The dark and deep forest is surrounded by the hills that increases the element of horror, strangeness, and mystery of the place, thus making the story more thrilling and more interesting. On entering the cutting with its sheer rock walls, towering high above the rails, Baldeo could not help thinking about the wild animals that he might encounter. that he might come across. He had heard many tales of the famous tunnel tiger, a man-eater which was supposed to frequent this spot. He had heard stories about the man-eater tiger which visited this tunnel quite often. He hardly believed these stories, for since his arrival at this place a month ago, he had not seen or even heard a tiger. But Baldeo did not believe these stories because he had been at this place for the past 1 month, but he had never seen or heard such a tiger. Baldeo had seen and even heard of panthers. There had, of course, been panthers, and only a few days ago the villagers had killed one with their spears and axes. Baldeo had occasionally heard the sawing of a panther calling to its mate, but they had not come near the tunnel or his shed. Baldeo walked confidently. He was very confident. For being a tribal himself, he was used to the jungle and its ways. Like his forefathers, he carried a small axe, fragile to look at, but deadly when in use. You see, the axe which Baldeo carried did not look like a massive one, like a massive weapon, but it was very deadly when used. It was very dangerous when used. He prided himself in his skill in wielding it against wild animals. Baldeo was very skillful. He knew the technique of using his axe to defend himself against animals. He had killed a young boar with it once, and the family had feasted on the flesh of the boar for 3 days. The axe head of pure steel, thin but ringing true like a bell, had been made by his father over a charcoal fire. The axe head was made by Baldeo's father. This axe was part of himself. Baldeo always kept the axe with him, and wherever he went, be it to the local market 7 miles away or to a tribal dance, the axe was always in his hand. Occasionally, an official who had come to the station had offered him good money for the weapon. Now and then, an official who had visited this place had offered him a handsome amount for the axe, but Baldeo had no intention of parting with it. He did not give away his axe. The cutting curved sharply, and in the darkness, the black entrance to the tunnel looked up menacingly. The dark tunnel looked extremely frightening. The signal light was out. The oil lamp had stopped burning. Baldeo set to work to haul the lamp down by its chain. If the oil had finished, he would have to return to the hut for more. The mail train was due in 5 minutes. As Baldeo had feared, the oil lamp had flared out. So Baldeo brought down the lamp to check if the oil had finished, so that he could get some from his hut. Once more he fumbled. He looked for his matches. Then suddenly he stood still and listened. Suddenly a sound made him alert. Let's see what it is. The frightened cry of a barking deer. It's the frightened cry of a barking deer, followed by a crashing sound in the undergrowth. That made Baldeo hurry because it indicated the presence of a tiger, maybe the tunnel tiger, somewhere close to Baldeo. There was still a little oil in the lamp, and after an instant's hesitation, he lit the lamp again and hoisted it into position. Baldeo was hesitant whether he should run away or light the lamp. Being a dedicated worker, he preferred to light the lamp rather than run away. Having done this, he walked quickly down the tunnel, swinging his own lamp so that the shadows leaped up and down the soot-stained walls, and having made sure that the line was clear, he returned to the entrance and sat down to wait for the mail train. After lighting the lamp, he checked the tunnel and then sat down to wait for the train. Hats off to his dedication towards his duty. He doesn't run away, but waits to give signal to the train driver. The train was late. Sitting huddled up, almost dozing, he soon forgot his surroundings and began to nod. Being tired and sleepy, Baldeo falls asleep. Back in the hut, the trembling of the ground told of the approach of the train, and a low, distant rumble woke the boy, who sat up rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Back in the hut, Tembu is awakened by the rumbling sound of the train. Still sleepy, he tells his father that it's time to light the lamp. "Father, it's time to light the lamp," he mumbled, and then realizing that his father had been gone some time, he lay down. But he was wide awake now, waiting for the train to pass, waiting for his father's returning footsteps. See, Tembu is very much aware of the danger of the forest, and he loves his father very much. So he is waiting anxiously for the return of his father. Now, dear students, check your answers and give yourself 2 awesome smileys for each correct answer. State whether the following statements are true or false. First one, the famous tunnel tiger was a man-eater, is true. Baldeo's axe was very fragile, is false. It's time to light the lamp. Tembu said this to his father, Baldeo. Let's do an activity to check whether you have understood the story or not. Answer the following questions. Who is the author of The Tiger in the Tunnel? Why did Tembu not accompany his father? What made Baldeo hurry? Choose the correct options to fill in the blanks. The mail train was due in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The axe head was made of pure bronze, pure iron, pure steel, pure copper. Let's see the answers. Who is the author of The Tiger in the Tunnel? Ruskin Bond. Why did Tembu not accompany his father? Tembu did not accompany his father because it was extremely cold outside. What made Baldeo hurry? The frightened cry of a barking deer, followed by a crashing sound in the undergrowth, made Baldeo hurry because it indicated the presence of a tiger close by. The mail train was due in 5 minutes. The axe head was made of pure steel. Now, let us draw a character sketch of Baldeo in brief by taking the help of the given mind map. Baldeo's family. Baldeo was a tribal man. He had a wife and 2 children, a son and a daughter. His assets. Baldeo lived in a small tribal village on the border of the forest. He had his home in this village. He had small rice fields to maintain his family, but the produce was not enough to help the family survive. His job. Baldeo happily took up the job of a Kalasi, watchman, at the small wayside signal stop at the entrance of the tunnel. His qualities: he was dedicated not only towards his family but also towards his duty. He was loving and caring. He not only loved his family but also people around him. See how he goes out into the dark forest in the night to light the lamp just because he does not want the people to get into trouble in case there is some obstruction in the tunnel. He is fearless. He knows that the jungle is full of wild animals. Still, he goes out to light the oil lamp. Now it's time for home assignment. The first question, answer the question in 15 to 20 words. The station, a small shack backed by heavy jungle, was a station in name only. Justify the statement. Next, use each of the following words as noun and verb. Cry, swallow, corner. The cry of a baby. Here cry is noun. The baby is crying. Here crying is verb. That's all from your presenter, FARZANA SHAMIM. See you in the next session with the next part of the story. I hope you enjoyed this session. Please go through the story and do all the assignments. Thank you very much. Have a great day. This is an initiative by SCERT, the Department of School Education, Punjab.